To break down all things USC Gamecocks hoops, we have the captain, Carey Rich from 107.5 The Game with us today. He's a former two-time captain for the Gamecocks and really a fixture in Columbia hoops the past few decades. So Carey Rich, the captain, thank you for joining us today. We have a lot to talk about. Obviously, a big week for college basketball. We have the NCAA tournaments happening. The Gamecock women are #1. And then the big news yesterday, head coach Frank Martin, he's gone. A lot of people actually saw this coming. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Yes, very surprising news that came out of Columbia just yesterday. Frank Martin, who'd been here for 10 certainly did a really good job. A lot of fans, that first experience of not only getting to the NCAA tournament, but the Final Four. I thought he did a really good job of making South Carolina basketball SEC relevant. And unfortunately, this big business of big-time college athletics has an ugly side to it. And occasionally that ugly side shows up. And that ugly side showed up for Frank Martin yesterday and his family, and you hate to see it end that way. He's been a personal friend the last 10 years, but unfortunately, again, it kind of comes with the territory when an assessment or evaluation is made and certain measures are not in place. It puts the athletic director and the athletic administration in a tough spot to have to make a really difficult decision, such as we saw yesterday.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned how Coach Martin led the team first NCAA Final Four appearance, back in 2017. Really big deal for the program. Very well liked, it seemed, by players, current and past. Can you give us a little bit more insight just as to the type of person Coach Martin is?
Yes, I tell you, I think it's so easy to fall prey to what we see on the sideline. Very intense, very passionate. He's kind of a throwback coach where he holds his players accountable, and it's probably not the norm when you look across the landscape of college basketball in terms of how coaches are coaching. But the one thing that I will tell you is that there's not a more loyal and caring individual than Frank Martin. And there are not a lot of folks who got the opportunity to see that side of him, but certainly those that are in Columbia, those that have crossed paths with him in years past, certainly know that side of him, which is why he's so well liked, which is why his players are so loyal to him. And listen to the national media across the country. They all like him, and he's one of the fixtures and one of the most well-liked guys in the coaching fraternity. So that part of it is why it was a big surprise, because he has become a really big voice in college athletics. And it's unfortunate that it has to end the way that it ended. But again, big-time college athletics sometimes force you tough decisions.
Right. That's the nature of the beast, unfortunately, as we know. Any idea what's next for Coach Martin? Carey?
No, I do know that he's a basketball coach. He loves being on the sideline. He's a teacher at heart, started his career as an educator, as a math teacher. So he really enjoys the teaching aspect of the game. Whether or not certainly he'll get another opportunity to coach because he's too good of a basketball coach, just comes about, I don't know. But I tell you one thing, if he's not going to be on the sideline for next year, he'll be great on television. He's personable, he's charismatic, he's insightful, he's knowledgeable, really smart, and he's likable. And I know that to what a lot of people may see on the sideline, but he'll be great on television if he decides not to on someone's sideline next year. But if that opportunity comes for him to be on television, he will be absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm. No, I have to agree. During his press conferences, talking with media, he always really tells it like it is. You can always count on Coach Martin to give you that perfect soundbite because it's not always coach speak. You know, he really gets into it, and you could feel the passion he has for the game, for his players. He really is one of the best. And of course, it's sad to see him go, but all good things must come to an end. And then, we look ahead now to the future of Gamecocks men's basketball. And the athletics department saying the search will begin immediately, of course. In your mind, playing for the Gamecocks, being around this program, what type of coach would be a good fit for South Carolina?
Well, I think that's a $64,000 question. I know the one thing Coach Martin did prove to all of us is that you can win at a high level by getting to the Final Four. You're talking about defying and dispelling the notion that's associated with South Carolina basketball. He proved everyone wrong with that. I think that's a great start. I think it certainly shows that it can be done here in Columbia. I think the main thing the next coach has to have and has to bring to the table, when you look at the success of the South Carolina basketball program in the years that they have been successful, it all centers around one thing and one thing only: being able to protect the borders and satisfy the prospects in the state of South Carolina. And not just the prospects, but the best players that are ACC or SEC basketball. No, you're not going to get all of them. And in fairness to Frank, the last 5 coaches haven't gotten all of them. But just if you're able to secure your border and identify those players that are good enough in the state to win with here in South Carolina, certainly you have to be able to do that. I think that's first and foremost. Just a coach that's going to embrace the so-called non-basketball tradition that some people suggest South Carolina has. That suggests that South Carolina is a bad job. Well, I think the next coach will have to embrace those challenges and embrace that so-called label. So someone energetic, one that's going to face the challenges head on and find a way to get this program to get into that next level. I made it. There's not a team in the SEC over the last 10 years that came to play South Carolina that knew they were going into that game to win. They knew that it was going to be a dogfight. How do you take it to that next level to where those dogfights now turn into wins? That's the challenge for the next coach. $64,000 question is, who will that next coach be? I'm curious to see myself.
Are you hearing any rumor mills so far? I know we're a day out, but have you heard a thing? Anything you can give us?
You hear a lot of names, and sometimes the names are behind them, and sometimes they don't. But the typical names that are going to be associated with most jobs that are open right now, you hear the McMahons from State, you hear the Dennis Gates from Cleveland, you hear the Richie McKays from Liberty, or you hear some of the other folks. You even hear someone that's you guys are familiar with in the Greenville area. Bob Ritchie, Farmers head coach, has certainly been tossed around, and whether or not any of these names come to fruition right now is just innuendos, just speculation and rumors, but you never know how this stuff is going to turn out. My ears and eyes glued to the television.
Yeah, it's a guessing game right now, and it'll be interesting to see what the Gamecocks decide, who they go with. But certainly big shoes to fill on all levels there on the men's side of things. And I know you mentioned some people call this a bad job. Well, you look at the football team and how people said that about South Carolina, and now we have Shane Beamer in there, who is getting these recruits, getting some great coaches, and really reinvigorating that program. So I don't think there's anything like a bad job out there. I hate when people say that, but you got to give credit where credit's due for these coaches that come into these programs and really energize and get those players and fan bases going. So we're excited to see who lands in South Carolina. Let's